So a couple of quick logistics, then I'll get into the actual company itself. So valuation's 5 million. We were looking to raise about 500,000. Raised about 320 so far. Biggest angel investor has done 25. Most have done anywhere from like 1 to 5, and then we got a bunch of smaller checks at 100 to 500 bucks. Valuation at 5 million is justified from a couple of things. TLDR, products built, users are there. Team is really good in terms of me on the marketing side, CTO, 30 years of software engineering, built multiple startups. Many have failed because he didn't figure out marketing, but end-to-end architecture was able to build. And then AngelList came out with their valuation diagrams. And in 2022, obviously 2020 valuations were like 20 million for pre-seed. In 2022, they normalized, but still they were 7 to 10 million post money for a basic idea and a pitch deck. So I think we were beyond basic idea pitch deck, but we still put ourselves at 5 conservatively just because raising the next round will be harder. So that's kind of the justification for the valuation. Okay, product itself. So I think there's a massive problem in the audio industry, and there's a gap in the industry that I think I have a particular insight, the sort of Peter Thiel, what do you know about the world that the rest of the world doesn't know? I genuinely think there's something I know about this industry that other people have not cared enough to look into. And as a result of that, that's the competitive advantage for how I think we can solve the problem. The way podcasts are distributed right now are primarily through RSS feeds. So RSS feeds are basically these decentralized feeds on the internet. They were invented in the 1990s to distribute content. They existed for news, they existed for video, and then they existed for audio. Twitter killed them for news. YouTube killed them for video. Nothing has killed them for podcasts. So how does the RSS feed work? You upload your audio into the RSS feed if you're a creator. Spotify then can access it. Apple can access it. Amazon can access it. Google can access it. Overcast, there's like literally 1 trillion apps that can just access the audio from the RSS feed. This is why Lex Friedman, his podcast is everywhere. It's not exclusive to Spotify, Apple, unless he signs a deal. Same thing with Joe Rogan before he went exclusive. The problem with this that I've noticed, and I've noticed this as a creator when I started the podcast 2 years ago, and I noticed this from talking to 1,000 people face-to-face on Zoom in 2020, 2021, and we have over 1,600 written testimonials. I can send you this after as well. The number one problem with them is discovery. They're like, okay, I post my podcast in this RSS feed, it gets distributed, and then it just sits there and it dies on these platforms. And so my question was like, well, wait a second. Audio is booming. It has Spotify has 500 million monthly active users. COVID accelerated more people to listen to it. 168 million Americans have at least listened to a podcast once in their life. So why is the discovery mechanism for podcast discovery such a big deal? And if you Google podcast discovery sucks, you'll find article upon article upon article of thought leaders in the audio industry saying this problem sucks. My hypothesis is because we haven't killed the RSS feed. We have not created a centralized engine or network with network effects, the same way YouTube has been done for video or Twitter has been done for news, that has created the discovery mechanism to actually find a podcast. So in 2009, before Twitter took over, everyone got their news from Google RSS feeds. You were like subscribed to Washington Post's RSS feed and NY Times, and it came to your news. Twitter killed it because Twitter did the one thing for newspapers that the internet was promising to do, but never was able to do, which is actually put their content in front of people that didn't know who they were, meaning do the marketing for them. So if you're the New York Times, instead of getting people to subscribe to your decentralized RSS feed, you're like, okay, I'll set up on Twitter. I'll get a bunch of followers. So now I own that asset, at least on that platform. And then when I tweet, if I tweet something about LeBron James, someone who might not know what the New York Times is, but really gives a fuck about LeBron James, because Twitter has, amazing machine learning and algorithms, they can say, oh, hey, Mr. Basketball person, you might like this article. They put it in their feed. And if the thumbnail title is good on that tweet, it's going to convert and it's going to get a click. And the New York Times will get that exposure to that person for free. The beauty of that changed everything for content. And then YouTube figured out how to do that for video, obviously. I don't think that exists for audio. And so what I conceptualize Audea as is a search engine for audio that will eventually have the algorithmic capability to be able to recommend content in a feed of Audeas or audio ideas, whether they're podcasts, music, poetry, comedy. I think the list is endless of what we can recommend that gives people something to find and answer the question of what do I want to listen today, subscribe to their best creators, and ultimately create that algorithmic network effect. It's obviously a big challenge around creators and getting the content, getting the distribution. I think we've done a decent job so far that we can talk about. But I think that as a baseline idea solves the audio discovery problem. Final thing I'll say before you ask questions, I believe Spotify, which is the big elephant in the room, has a structural problem in their business. So Spotify in 2006, when Napster and every illegal music streaming service was taking billions from the record labels, Spotify was like, hey, you guys are going to go out of business. You need to adopt streaming. The record label was like, okay, we'll adopt streaming, but we're going to give you a hell of a bargain, or like a hell of a deal, because at the end of the day, Spotify is just an app. Like, it's a great app, great UI, great product, but it's just an app. So they made a horrible deal with the record labels. They didn't really have any leverage. And now they can't make any money off the music. Even if they increase their subscription cost from $10 to $12 to 13, 85% of that has to go to the record label, the publisher, the masters, blah, 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 all this different stuff. So in 2017, Daniel Ek was like, holy shit, I can't make any money off music. I built this big product, 190 million people. I can't make any money. How do I pivot? That's when they decided to start buying podcasts. And this, to me, was where they fucked up. Because instead of becoming a YouTube of audio, which I think they could have done if they really built in the network, they decided to become a Netflix of audio. They bought Joe Rogan for 100 million. They bought Gimlet for 180 million. They bought Caller Daddy 60 million. They spent 250 million on The Ringer. And they acquired all these premium assets to get top of the funnel brand awareness, to get someone into the app. And the problem to me is like, okay, you got them into the app, but now you have a very unique Netflix problem. Because not only are you getting paid $8 billion a year from the record labels to recommend Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Beyonce, you've got to pump those in the home feed. Now you've got to recommend Joe Rogan and Caller Daddy because you have to get an ROI to prove to shareholders that it was worth buying these assets in the first place. And so to me, they don't have, they aren't a traditional recommendation engine the way I think of YouTube, because I exploded on YouTube last year, 16,000 subs from zero, because I used keywords and search, and YouTube like took the word Palantir and SoFi, and they really put me in front of people that got them to know who I was. That would never happen on something like a Spotify. And I know this because I've uploaded content there and it just sits there and it dies. Ticker symbol U, he's one of our investors as well. He invested immediately because he realized he has 50 million views on YouTube and 5,000 plays on Spotify. Same content. One of those platforms is pushing it. One of those platforms isn't. And one of those platforms has a fiduciary commitment to not push strangers' content because they can't monetize it. So that's the market opportunity. I think it's a big deal. If we can create the algorithmic network and machine, then I think there's a chance to be big.
Okay, cool. Couple questions. First of all, I think that was a good primer. So I guess just going down the list of questions that I have, the whole thing is built on an assumption that RSS is the problem to discovery. Is that validated? Or to what degree is it validated?
So that's a great question. So I have a couple of responses to this. We've had competitors in this space. One particular competitor is verbal.com, VURBL.com. There is a 1.3 million seed back in September 2020. Audrea Gold Everett is the CEO and the founder of it. And she had a vision. I saw her talk in podcasts about trying to become the YouTube of audio. Now that company shut down last month. Now, why did it shut down? They approached becoming the YouTube of audio by not becoming a YouTube of audio, by connecting to RSS feeds. So when I discovered them in 2021 and I was like, okay, here's a competitor, let's see what they've got. When I went on their platform, all I saw was the same shit on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, right? The Gary V's audio experience. Like they just pulled open source content onto their platform. Immediately, the reason this validated, at least in some respect, that RSS is a huge issue, the content differentiation doesn't exist if you use the content that already exists out there on the open RSS feed, which is why Lex Friedman blows up on YouTube because he makes a clip of a podcast about aliens, and then YouTube's algorithm finds some random person that cares about aliens, doesn't give a shit about Lex Friedman, but it recommends it. Thumbnail title is good. That person discovers, now they're a fan of Lex Friedman. RSS feeds can't do that. He's not uploading like alien clips on Spotify because Spotify doesn't have the proprietary data to recommend those.
How do RSS feeds organize data?
RSS
done a deep dive?
They don't organize data. So it's a decentralized feed. They don't care about keywords, description, tags. You don't do that. It's just a feed of content. So
first come, first serve. Basically, if I post something later than you, it comes up on the top?
Exactly. So then now Spotify will attach some discovery here. They're like, okay, Amit listens to the All In podcast a lot, so we're just going to put the All In there. But it's not even based on sequential order. There is no chronological anything. It's just a decentralized feed that Amazon and Apple have to pull, and then Amazon and Apple will attach some level of personalization based upon your listening habits to give it to you. But they're just pulling from an RSS feed, meaning the content on Spotify is not on Spotify. It's on an RSS feed hosted by Spotify. The content on YouTube is on YouTube, which is why they have all the proprietary data. They have to fuel a recommendation engine. And more importantly, they can advertise against it.
So I'm going to ask a lot of stupid questions here.
Yeah.
And I apologize in advance. But
no, it's fine.
If all of these companies are basically building on top of an RSS feed in terms of pulling or pushing the data or the user to that feed, can't the entire discovery engine happen on an external layer? In other words, can't Spotify build the discovery engine on their platform? And who gives a fuck if the RSS feed doesn't have any discovery built in? Spotify's done that already.
Yeah, it's a good question. So the problem to this, there's a couple of hurdles to this. TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I'll use these as examples. These are, I think, the best recommendation engines in the world, and Twitter, right? We'll pull Twitter up there. And the reason for this is because they own all the content. I mean, own in a metaphorical sense, because the content is uploaded to them. So what that does is it creates a level of proprietary ownership over the data or over the content that gives them an edge in terms of understanding something. So your argument is like, okay, RSS feeds hosted by Spotify, Spotify creates a discovery suite on top of them. And this is where it gets technical and nuanced. And I will send you a podcast of their VP of engineering talking about why discovery sucks on the platform. He did this podcast about 3 months ago. The packaging of that content is incredibly difficult. What do I mean by that? When you pull Lex Friedman's RSS feed he just did a podcast with Mr. Beast, right? You have zero data about that actual piece of content. All you have is the raw audio file. And now Spotify has to figure out who do we show this to some extent. The packaging of that is an issue. When Lex Friedman uploads the YouTube Mr. Beast the Mr. Beast podcast on YouTube, the level of data YouTube gets, because it's on YouTube, meaning it's not being pulled from some RSS feed, to be able to show to the various different audiences in different circles that exist on YouTube, is what actually creates algorithmic discovery. Same thing with Twitter, right? If Mr. Beast tweets something, how does Twitter know who to show these tweets to outside of his followers, which gives him the ability to keep growing? If Twitter was pulling RSS feed type scripts from some random word processing decentralized blog, you don't have the proprietary data. So your answer, I mean, your claim is correct. They can build some level of personalization, which they've already done on top of RSS feeds. The question becomes to the granularity of how they can recommend that on top of the fact that they have all this premium content sitting on their platform that they have to make money off of.
RSS is, and this is just my lack of awareness on this field, but like RSS is like
real simple syndication.
Yeah, but it's like open source. Nobody has there's not a community that has built on that because popularity is dying. So like if I wanted to introduce, let's say, tagging in the metadata for RSS, nobody gives a fuck to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, tagging already exists. There's video RSS. So like Spotify has video RSS feeds as well, right? But I think this is the best answer to your question. Why does no one give a fuck about video on Spotify? Because this Darntons, I don't know if you know that channel on YouTube. They do like Palantir stuff. Their content is also on Spotify. But it never gets recommended to me. It never shows up in my feed. It never gets them. Like if they did a video about Peter Thiel that got like a couple thousand views, that would never get a couple thousand listens or views on their video audio RSS feed on Spotify, because it's not proprietary to the point where Spotify knows, like YouTube knows, how to show people who care about Peter Thiel this content about Peter Thiel. So, I mean, there's been innovation in RSS. It's just broken. Mike Magalinio, the co-founder of Anchor that Spotify bought 5 years ago, also has talked about the death of RSS and how he thinks that it's probably not really going to be around for long.
Okay. So one more question at a high level about RSS, and then we can move away to the alternative.
Yeah.
Spotify, so from what I'm hearing, is built on RSS. What are the technical limitations that have prevented people from doing this before? If RSS, like I was just reading something right now that Google deprecated it in like 2013, they don't use it anymore.
Yep.
Why hasn't nobody built this in the last 10 years?
So if the question is why has no one built a sort of audio search engine,
an alternative to RSS?
Would that alternative RSS for audio specifically, right?
Yeah, something to replace that system.
Yeah, so I think that there's two answers to this. Number one, RSS feeds are decentralized. And as a result of it, there are people in the podcast community that like the lack of overlords on their content, right? So like YouTube is the only place on the planet to really upload your video, right? There's not that many alternatives. On podcasting, it's a nice kind of open environment because you upload one place and then it goes to a trillion different apps. And then the people have the power, not Spotify in particular. And this is a big concern, right? Because I was like, if I build this company, there's going to be a lot of cultural pushback around this, which is why I spoke to a lot of podcasters and people in the industry in 2021. And I asked them, how much do you actually care about like the freedom to post your own shit? And they were like, I don't give a fuck. They were like, just get me views. Like I don't care if it's centralized. I just need people to see my shit. And that's when I realized, okay, so the reason RSS hasn't been innovated on is because no one's tried to tackle podcast discovery in the way that, believe it or not, I'm trying to tackle it, like build a pseudo YouTube of audio. And then B, everyone's been so lazy and kind of conformed to the nature that audio doesn't deserve to go viral. Audio is one of those things where You find it through Twitter or YouTube or Instagram, and then you go to Spotify. You never find it on Spotify itself. That it just hasn't been a medium that's been innovated on. So I think people have just been used to it. But the things, if you look at articles over the past couple of years, things are boiling up about how we need to solve the discovery problem for ourselves.
Okay, and so right now, does Audea own the IP to anything that's posted on it? Like, for example, like my videos are posted on it as well.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm trying to figure out is like RSS is a technology like the wheel.
Yep.
You know, the creator of the wheel, you know, doesn't get royalties from Toyota, Honda, Tesla. Like, it's like common good. What do you call it?
It's a public utility to an extent.
Sure.
So we don't own the IP. So anyone can take an audio. So if you wanted to delete your audios tomorrow, you could just delete all of them. Same thing with YouTube, right? YouTube doesn't own the IP. You just post it on YouTube. Everyone gives up our content because YouTube's so valuable. So that's the same thing to me. Lex Friedman gets most of his new audience from YouTube because they find him through there and then they go listen to the audio stuff. But he's free to delete it tomorrow or you know, anywhere else. So we don't own the IP, but if we did want to advertise against it, which is the business model, we would own it as per the terms of service in terms of being able to advertise. But we would also do a rev share. So it's a similar thing as YouTube at that point.
Okay. And so I understand what the sort of value prop is. I understand what the problem is, but right now, like there are, like it doesn't seem like a zero sum, you know, thing. Like there are companies that are successful right now with whatever content discovery mechanism they have. Spotify is still making money from ads. They're not like struggling with ad money or content discovery, I guess. So is the creator need big enough, or is it just like, who gives a fuck because it's just another platform and it's the same content that I'll just be distributing everywhere?
It's a good question. So I mean, the first thing on Spotify, just to push back a little bit, they're not profitable. They have like a 15% margin on their ads. They're thinking in the next 5 years they'll get to 40-50% margin on those ads. I think it's a very big bet, and the amount of cash they're gonna have to spend to keep getting users, like TikTok spends zero on customer acquisition, metaphorically, because everyone realizes, and this is where we get into a philosophical discussion. They spend zero on CAC because everyone's like, holy shit, TikTok's giving people millions of views that are just in their bedroom. I need to post my content there. Spotify has to spend billions on content because Spotify's not known for that, right? If they were known as this new emerging thing that you post and boom, you know.
Yeah, so like SoundCloud, for example, like a different example.
Right, and that's good. And SoundCloud has died off. They're not as good as Discovery anymore either.
But you got my point.
Yeah, I got your point as well, right? So because they've just turned a little bit more corporate. But I think the best way to analyze this is impressions, right? Which is the best statistic that you and I care about on YouTube. My YouTube channel got 38 million impressions over the course of last year. That means 38 million fucking times YouTube said, hey, we're going to show Amit's thumbnail to somebody. On Spotify, there is not even a statistic, an analytic for impressions in your podcast if you go into the back end. So that's my point. Your question is like, well, this is another app. People will post it like it's the same content. To me, this is where marketing comes in. User acquisition and content growth will be exponential if, for example, someone like a Gary Vee was like, hey, this is the next best place to get your audio discovered because it's not happening on the pseudo Netflixes of audios that exist. So from a marketing perspective, if we can brand Audea as like, hey, lawyer, hey, real estate agent, hey, poet, hey, comedian, hey, musician, that's not getting any love for your audio content on YouTube, because YouTube's not recommending your audio shit because YouTube has 500 hours of video uploaded a minute, on Instagram or TikTok because it's not built for audio, and definitely not on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon, where do you go? And that gap, as small as it is, I think it's big. At least, you know, SoundCloud is about 150 million MAUs. Spotify is 500 million. I think that market's growing. I think the creator economy in general is growing. And I think the platforms that win, that become really billion-dollar companies, are the platforms that solve discovery, or at least give the dream and the illusion to creators that discovery will happen. And if we become that, you know, that's my hope for audio.
And is the idea that it's only audio because you're encroaching on YouTube's space if it's video?
Yeah, it's not even encroaching. I don't think we beat YouTube at video. I think it's absurd for me to be like, hey, invest in my startup, we're going to take on YouTube. Like, that's not going to happen, right? Like, but audio, I am so deeply within the space that the existing, there's a structural problem with the business model from an RSS feed and from the Netflix of audio perspective, which gives me the confidence to say I have a shot. There's no structural problem with YouTube. YouTube's amazing. So
cool. I'm sold. How do you do content discovery?
Okay, so there's a couple of things right there. our algorithms are not amazing, but they're getting better. So every
can you tell I'm a product person?
yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna say like we have a shit ton of AI right now. No. So the platform has been niched down to stocks and business. If you go to Audea right now, by the way, Audea.io looks very similar to YouTube. It is a really shitty design right now. We're unveiling a whole new platform by the end of January. So we've had devs working on it over the past 5 months. Really proud of how it's looking. The MVP that we shipped was like a bootstrap template just to get it out the door. So it's going to be changing. The design is not going to look like YouTube. Thumbnails and titles are sort of the key basis for how a user engages with an audio and sees something and then decides to listen to audio. So then the question becomes, what do we index to fuel an algorithm to be able to get them to see the content? The title is important. The description is important. In a few months, we will be actually transcribing the audio, and we don't do that right now from in AWS, but it's really simple to just run the audio through AWS. It takes out a transcript, and then you index the transcript. We're not doing that yet. Eventually, we will be doing it. And tags are very important on the platform right now. So our entire search engine is built off the premise that tags help people discover stuff. And that's how YouTube started in 2005. Like tags were a really big deal. And eventually by 2011, their algorithms got so good they didn't need it. But tags are important for us right now. In terms of actual discovery, the platform is so niched down to stocks, business, and finance content that if you post that type of content on the platform, that's what the platform is made for. And I think, me and my co-founder came to that decision a month ago. We were like, look, we can't be everything for everyone yet until we get seriously viral, which is what me and my team are working on in terms of the content marketing side. A musician is not going to feel like Audea is like the next best thing. So, but right now, if you're in the stocks and business place and we're getting about 454 people listening for about 60 hours a day, every day since December, that's the content they come for. But in the future, all of those things will come into place to be able to create a recommendation algorithm that leads to discovery.
And it's all user input anyways, like tag and all the like meta tags are all like.
I mean, the CEO, the founder, or sorry, the president of TikTok was talking at the DealBook Summit, and Andrew Ross Sorkin, the CNBC host, was like, how do you guys make the algorithm? And the guy looked at him, he's just like, it's just user generated content. Like people post shit, and then it's pretty simple. And so and these are the platforms that actually have leverage, right? And that's why I'm looking at Spotify like, you guys are getting sucked by the record labels, and then you have no leverage because no one feels they can go viral. And so like you just have to keep spending this cash cow money to get premium audio. If we have a very anti-Spotify marketing campaign, not because we hate them, but just like showing people like, look at what's being done in audio right now. Look at what could be done. And I think if we get that message out to the world, then we'll see it.
Understood. Okay. So what are your main questions for me?
My main question for you from a product management perspective was, so you as a product manager, and I have a couple of friends I've spoken to as product managers, like they manage the end-to-end sort of life path between sales, engineers, et cetera, to get a product out the door. I wanted to know, what do you think is the biggest hurdle we're going to have in terms of building the product to actually be like usable by consumers? Like if you use YouTube every day, and I introduce Audea, like do you have any insights into the psychology of what it feels like from a product management perspective to get people to use, much less a new feature, but a new app itself?
Yeah. User behavior is, in my experience, shaped over a long tail. I think right now you want to pick off all the low-hanging fruit. And by that, I mean all the existing podcast listeners. So integrations, I would say, are going to be really important because right now content is the name of the game. If, Call Me Daddy went to Audea just as a cross post, you will inherently gain a percentage of that user base. And then if they're, pushed something else that's relevant to them, they're more likely to stick to that platform. And so really right now, the main thing that you should be focusing on is, okay, talking out of my ass because I've heard, a cumulative 1 hour around this business. But the thing that I would be initially, like my gut says, focus on is further integrations. And then I don't know if you have a team in place to sort of go after content creators existing and sort of sell them on this.
Basically marketing. Get the word out there, get people to join the platform.
Marketing and like influencer partnership programs. So if you have something like that, and then immediately you have to incentivize influencers somehow because you don't necessarily have the views on that platform. So I know there's no cost for me to go, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Audea, but there should be an added benefit for this because it's a smaller platform.
Do you think that benefit is the communication of this whole discovery spiel I gave you, or do you think it's like cash? Like, obviously cash would be better, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I don't know how much incremental discovery you're going to give me as if I'm having, I'm Mr. Beast and I have 100 million followers. I don't know how much extra I'm going to get from Audea versus the big boys.
Yeah.
Because that's where all the traffic goes. So you could sell the discovery if you were as big as those guys and say, hey, look, this is your untapped market right now. And so if you're very small, the influencer is how you get more users, not the other way around. You're not pitching people to the influencer. You're pitching the influencer with cash so that they can bring the people so that you can keep that flywheel going. So I don't know. I think also one of the things that look, so just a mini backstory, and by the way, I can go a little bit later because I got to go at 7:30. So for me, I head up product development, and a lot of my early career focused on like feature development, roadmaps, and all the tactical shit. But now a lot of what I do is like the strategic, high level, like game planning stuff. My gut right now is telling me like I would love to explore some type of intake method or input method to push content directly into Audea. So instead of having a manual upload by your engineers, is there like a Chrome plugin or some type of like input form that people can immediately, like, what is the common method of uploading a podcast on RSS feeds? I know you use like Buzzsprout or whatever the fuck you use.
A bunch of them,
How can we get Audea there? How can we get it right in front of them when they upload so that the pitch for you is so much easier to them to say, hey, look, it's one incremental click. We can even bundle it through like a Planoly, type solution so that you can have all your content management. And if we make the intake so fucking easy for them, then they will bring their audience there. And if you can plan to capture 10% of their audience, that's a huge win for you, man.
So I think there's two things on this. I've thought about this a lot. The only reason we can't integrate with something like a Buzzsprout is because they only work, and there's a bunch of people like Buzzsprout
on RSS.
They only work with RSS, right? So what I've done instead of that is, so we recruited about 30 finance creators in December, including you, which led to like 5,000 Audeas, right? Lots of content. I pay 3 women in the Philippines $8 a day, and they manually upload all of your YouTube videos onto Audea. So that's how we've been doing. So it's still, again, you don't have to do any work, right? So, and all your content shows up. But I agree with you. If there's like a button that from YouTube to just like Chrome extend it, all of it goes to Audea, because all the YouTube stuff is like it's public. That would be very helpful.
New content is what you're after.
Yeah.
All my previous content, I probably get a cumulative 100 views a month, on my it's not evergreen stuff. But the new Mr. Beast episode, one fucking episode is all you need, and you'll like triple your entire user base overnight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, how do you convince those creators? And I think that there is some type of like qualitative aspect of getting into their DMs, explaining the product and sort of explaining like, I think, also a partnership with one of these big names in podcasting is really like, would be beneficial from a branding perspective as well. Like, you just name one of the big podcasting people and you just give them a slice of the action and they just cross post their stuff and then they actively push their audience there. Look, I don't think anybody gives a flying fuck about RSS or not, whether it's a viewer. The only person that'll care is the creator, and the only person that'll care is the creator that's currently not getting any views, but it becomes a catch-22 because you don't have any users on the platform right now. And so how do you create that flywheel to get it going? If you
do you know Andrew Scholes?
Sounds familiar. Is he a comedian?
He's a big comedian on YouTube. He's like huge.
Is this the guy that like roasts the audience?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know him.
So this guy is huge. And okay, so after this ends, you gotta promise me. Actually, fuck, can I just share this with you right now? I gotta show you.
Send it over, man.
There's a 4-minute clip, okay? If you have 4 minutes.
Yeah, send it over.
Okay, I'll just pull it up right now. There's a 4-minute clip about him talking about audio discovery, and it's so good. I got a meeting with his manager. And so I'm in New York and I'm pitching his manager. This is one of the biggest comedians in the world. And the manager loved the pitch. He loved the idea. The problem was he just never followed through on getting us the meeting with Andrew. But there are people that we've been, I pitched Gary Vee the other time. We're still trying to get into that meeting. I agree with you. If we get one of those guys to say one Instagram post, like, hey, this is a place that you could post content. And if they have some skin in the game, if they have some equity in this, I think this explode, because Clubhouse, this is the biggest case study I've realized. Clubhouse exploded because they had Daddy Andreessen Horowitz money, and Elon Musk came on one room. That exploded their user growth 10x month over month for like 5 months. But the problem was the product is shit. Like no one gives a fuck about live audio. And recently, the CEO of Clubhouse, he did a podcast saying, we're not a discovery content platform, we're a community content platform. I was like, okay, you fucked up, because no one cares about community like they care about getting attention. So if so many people came to Clubhouse because they thought they were going to be the next Joe Rogan, if people every day are still streaming on Clubhouse for 20 people thinking they can build their brand, I can just imagine when people actually find an audio platform to give them real discovery that's like legit, it's actually showing their shit to new people, how big that can get. But we need a big name, I agree with you, to endorse it.
So that's a strategy. It's like, okay, big name, somehow they have to be incentivized, probably through equity or payment on your end, which is you're going to be running a loss for quite a while, my friend, to get them in the door. And then they bring their audiences. And the hope is with your superior content discovery method versus RSS, that those people stick because of the platform, but they come in because of the creator. Number one. Number two, if I were leading the product, the other thing I would do is immediately start a series of user interviews with content creators, especially audio content creators, not YouTubers. YouTubers don't give a fuck. Like they don't care because they're playing a different game. But podcasters, they have the show notes, they have all of their links, they have a different way of doing ads, they have like, the whole, like they use the script, whereas I use, whatever. Talking with them, what do they want to see from a feature set perspective that would actually be beneficial, the features that have been neglected to them from Spotify and or Apple Podcast and or whatever. Right. So the areas of focus is reducing the barriers to entry for these creators and having the creators have such a pleasant user experience that they choose to stay on that platform. The longer that you can have, like the higher the increase of the lifetime value of the creator, the more potential new listeners you'll get. And if the content discovery method is actually good, then the higher the lifetime value of the listeners.
Yeah, I agree 1000%. I also feel like when that traffic, like for example, if a Gary Vee whose entire reputation is telling people where to post before it blows up, which is the underpriced attention hypothesis he has, if he were to make that endorsement of Audea, I think that would bring in an influx of two types of people. Obviously consumers, people that want to see what the thing is, but then creators that are going to give it some time. Like they gave TikTok some time to see what it's got. And in that time is when you develop your moat and develop the lock-in for the network effects. And that's when, you go to the big companies and be like, hey, we need to raise a seed round immediately because this moment is once in a lifetime. And I think that moment can happen because, again, I don't know if you saw the video where I pitched Gary, but in 30 seconds, when I said Spotify and Apple are becoming Netflixes of audio, it was at a wine library meetup in New Jersey. He was nodding his head. He was like, yep, I agree. No discovery. And now we got to follow up on getting this meeting that he promised he'll give us. But like, I think he knows better than anybody else in audio, because he's been screaming about it for 5 years, that this medium is undervalued and underpriced. There is not a YouTube of audio. And YouTube, they can do as much as they want, but at the end of the day, they're a video platform and they just have too much content to compete with. So
yeah, and I think like it's a weird niche, right? Because you're hitting the sweet spot of like, you need big names to give big audiences to the platform, but you also service small names the best. Yeah, because content discovery is the value prop.
Yeah. It's such an interesting paradox. I pitched Dave Lee on this a while ago, and he told me that. He was like, he said something that stuck with me. He's like, most of the people that come to YouTube come in the finance space for like Dave Lee, Meet Kevin, etc. But they stay, or because of them, they find people like you and me that are much smaller. So it's like, you need the big names to get the fish, but then obviously the fish keep the platform alive.
As well. Yeah, the good thing is like we have, decades worth of case studies now because we have an Instagram and a TikTok and a YouTube and a Twitter and a whatever. They've already done this, and you've been, a user, a tester of their product for a decade plus. Right. So I think that's where I'd focus. It would be a couple of different avenues, but the big themes, like for the sake of this call, is how do we get influencers in the door? And from that, you break out to like, how do we incentivize them and how do we have them, stay And then how do we perfect the content discovery to keep audiences for a longer period of time? So those two things, influencers and listeners. And then aside from that, it's like, how do we lower the barriers to entry for uploading further content?
Yeah.
Right? How do we like put this logo in the face of everybody who is trying to upload content? I want to go to YouTube. I honestly want like a plugin. You
Yeah.
know, send this whatever, not tweet, but like if it's this Twitter Spaces, fuck, perfect. You know, upload this to Idea, and it's if it's a Chrome plugin or whatever, one extra click of a button, upload it, done. You know what I'm saying? So you'll and the idea is like not to fill it with junk, because
Right.
you don't want to like overload your like servers with all this like crap that nobody's going to listen to.
Right.
But the easier you can make it, the lower you the more you lower those barriers to entry, the more content you're going to have, and as a result, people are going to get more invested. Like I have content on Idea now, and I haven't checked it once.
Yep.
And I think once I did check it, it was just like I have like 10 listens or whatever, like cumulative.
Yep.
And so I am relatively, I don't care, but my content is still there because it cost me nothing to do it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's why, and some of the cachet I built in the finance community really helped me pitch over the past 30 days, a bunch of creators. Because I was just like, hey, here's the pitch. You want to be on this platform? And like 3 of them said no because they were, I guess, angry on a bad day or something. The far majority of them were like, hell yeah, like just put my shit up there. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we get more views. And so I think that's where, from a creative marketing perspective, we're accumulating a ton of content, but it's just dead unless we're figuring out the other side of the network effect.
The other thing, so I'll actually let's do this right now. Do you have time?
Yeah, I'm good. By the way, Tevis, I think this is a really great conversation. Do you mind if I post this tomorrow on the YouTube channel, just like me pitching an investor?
Sure. I have like a shirt with a fucking banana on it. Does that matter?
Me pitching an investor in the
I have fundamentals of investing in the background, so can you let me share?
Yeah.
Creators, and then we need to do listeners. I'm just trying this out for you.
Yep.
Creators and listeners. So creators, it's feature improvements. Feature improvements. This is LTV. So how do we make them stay on the platform? Let me check on time. Cool. And then we do intake. Okay. Ease of uploading. Those are the 2 areas you got to focus on. Listeners, it's going to be actually 3 things you got to focus on. And I guess this goes, so like, let's say time.
Yeah.
Okay. This is like the before, the during, the after. So why should I care? Benefit. And here, what we're going to include is link back to hub. So basically, or let's say, results of content discovery. So new subs. So basically, the big thing here, Amit, is like, and I can add a comment and I can share this with you after. It doesn't really matter. But basically, main question to answer is, number 1, if I gain a new sub on Audea, how does that sub translate on my other platforms?
Yep.
So social linking.
Yeah, and we have that integrated in the platform. But I mean, if you get a new sub on Audea and at least a new follower on Twitter, I think that's why TikTok was so smart, right? With keeping the Instagram and YouTube on the profile. They just knew it would drive more people to post.
And then this is all about integrations. So the Buzzsprout.
Right.
And then here it's gotta be like insights gained. Insight. Oh, you know what'd be cool actually? Now that I'm thinking about it, how do we increase the LTV of influencer with analytics?
Yeah. And
So
go ahead.
weekly summaries
Yeah.
of views.
Great idea.
Is views what they care about?
Yep.
Money, or like, I'm just thinking out loud here. Yeah.
Yep.
This is how many people, clicked your Twitter link as a result of XYZ video. Whatever it is. But the point is that we need insights here.
Yeah, and I agree with this so heavily because again, that thing I said about impressions, like me and my team from a content perspective are trying to figure out how to tell people on TikTok and Instagram, like, hey, your content only gets to people if they see it, if they have an impression of it. And it's the biggest statistic, and you know this in the ad world. It's like for like advertisers literally measure how many impressions did we get. And on podcasting, on audio, there is no impressions. And audio, we've got that built in. We're giving 38,000 impressions a day. So 38,000 times a day, people see an audio.
Beautiful. So summary of impressions.
And I just feel if you're a creator that gets nothing on Spotify and you're like, holy shit, maybe I got 10 listens, but 5,000 times this platform tried to serve my content to people, you feel something with that. But we just have to communicate that effectively.
I'll frame that as a user story for you. Just put my product hat on. So as a creator, I want to see the progress of my content uploaded on the platform. I don't want it to see like, I don't want it to be like this monotonous thing that I just do without anything gained. I want to see that I'm making some progress, that week over week I'm having more insights or whatever. Now, listeners, it's all about content discovery, right? So basically here as a listener, listeners will discover platform via creator, will stay on platform for suggestions. Discovery is key. So the idea is like, if you have let's say emits YouTube, and then you have like this other circle that's whatever's in the middle here, it is like essentially what they're staying for.
The intersection of interests that actually create. And we've seen this, right? Because I can see my analytics. I drive a ton of traffic to the platform every day for people who care about stocks. And I see there's stuff they click on that is rooted in self-development, which is like makes sense because self-development, business, right? Finance, like there's an intersection there. So it's so interesting to see what people click on, even if they don't spend a ton of time listening to it.
Yeah. As a user, I want to discover new creators on idea. Intersection of interest. That's a great way of putting it. So at a high level, these are the problems that you have to care about. And I think that, this concept of time is really important because you have to think of like the life cycle of the entire listener and the creator. So, from a creator, they're going to come in here on intake, they're going to have some feature improvements and they're going to have, some results of discovery, right? But then, from a listener as well, like they're going to come in here, they might use it once or twice. The thing that keeps them coming back is consistency in their creators posting, right? So let's also jot that down. So consistency of quality content, right? We don't want just random shit. We want to actually, have some benefit, because I think like the main value prop of an RSS feed only applies to creators.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a form of distribution. Like Spotify knows if you listen to All In, when the new episode of All In comes out, they'll just show it to you via RSS, right?
Yeah. So if the main value proposition only applies to creators, then that's your way in, right? Because creators are the only ones getting some value, whereas listeners really don't give a shit if it's an RSS or whatever. It's like literally just another platform for them to use, and you have an uphill battle here because they haven't been integrated in this platform yet. So it's like, why would I use this when I'm familiar with YouTube, when I'm familiar with whatever I am using, Spotify, let's say. So your creators is like the biggest thing that you have to do. And I think, intake here, let's just add another layer to this. I love how like we're doing.
Now I see why you get paid the big bucks in product management. This is incredible, bro. Like you didn't make one typo this whole time.
Yeah, I've done this quite a bit. Okay, so let's just try to tackle all three parts of this like life cycle in terms of a concrete, tangible opportunity area, okay? Because these right here are like problems that we're focusing on, but we also want to focus on like what is the opportunity for us to solve these problems. So, in the intake process, let's just brainstorm some stuff. So let's say, a plugin. Let's shoot some ideas. Like, how can we solve this intake process, make it easier uploading, a Buzzsprout without the RSS? So Twitter Spaces. So let's say Chrome plugin.
Extensions. I mean, even just like, Audea doing it for you, right? So my team taking care of it. I know that's not as simple, but it's a little bit more communication involved.
So manually cross posting.
Yeah.
So this is we'll put it there, but because that's how we do it right now, but it's not sustainable, right? Yeah. So that's the only problem. Like, how can we automate your team? Man, is there a tool that we can build that says, hey, look, these are all this person's socials, like a bot, right? And say anytime that this person posts, also like post it here. Bots.
There definitely has to be a tool we could make to do that. And we built a bot in the past before on the platform, so I know my CTO could handle that.
Yeah, it's like an if Amit posts anywhere, then post it on Audea.
Yeah, and I think we would primarily do it on YouTube because a thumbnail title is the exact same thing on Audea. So that would be like
sure. Okay, now let's talk about some features or improvements. Why and how should we stay on the platform? Well, I think the first thing that really comes to mind here is analytics. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But there's already a pretty big game in analytics like that. It's been pretty much discovered. Like Buzzsprout gives you analytics. All of these RSS based tools give you analytics. So what is the thing that they don't give you? And so here right now, Amit, like the focus is going to be on conduct user interviews.
Yeah. Yep.
So conduct user interviews and do like probably, I would say like a mini like heuristics evaluation. It's a design thinking exercise. And here you have a lot of like design thinking. This is where you're going to do a lot of like your ideation. So this is where you're going to talk to existing influencers. This is where, you're going to ask them, okay, what is the pain point, right? So right here, the goal is try to find the existing pain points in their experiences. So if it's content discovery, then you're going to have to figure out a way to do better content, or to show that you're doing better content discovery and keep them more to date or whatever. This is going to be like one of the hardest parts because this is essentially like the black box of like, why should I stay?
Yeah.
Right. It's so easy for me to upload because you're just doing it manually for me. But like, why should I care to actually, go on this tool and check my thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then it's like the next part is, why should I care? What is the benefit? So a lot of this is going to be like dollar based, honestly.
Yeah.
That's the best motivator for content creators. I don't care what you say. You can tell me views, impressions. It doesn't mean shit at the end of the day. Like I care about making a future, with that content.
100%.
So that's going to be dollar based. A lot of this is going to be, developments on ad front.
And to me, the ad rev, like, so this is the way I think about it. We don't have the money to pay out ads yet, or a team to build out a proper ad network. That comes with a seed round of financing, so like a 1.5, 2 million round, because you just have so much more infrastructure. So to me, the pitch to creators, and let me know if I'm wrong, right or wrong on this, is, hey, if you're here first, you're going to be first in line to get ad rev. Once ad rev comes, the contingency is they have to think we're going to get to that level, which is why they would stay at least until then. How can we make money that is not ads? Yeah.
Easy. How can we make money from views or eyeballs that is not ads? There's a gazillion different ways. Creators will help you. Link up to their merch stores. Link up, take a penny off the top. Whatever it is, this is the question you got to answer here. Because if you figure out a way, if I'm making $100 a month on YouTube uploading 15 videos, which is like what I'm doing, if there's a way that you can make me $100 a month, bro, I will switch my entire effort to the new platform. It's all money is the best motivator for a content creator, in my opinion, especially your sweet spot niche of content creators that are just starting out and looking for growing their audiences. So audiences right now equal money.
Tevs, do you even think something like let's say we allocate 10,000 from our marketing budget and we pay creators $100 to upload their first, I don't know, 250 audio. I'm just spitballing here. Do you think that even from some perspective is a way, or do you think it has to be a little bit more deeper in terms of a business model around like merch, for example? Or
I think so.
I'm saying, can we just give them money? Can we throw money at them in a cheap way?
That's not sustainable though, man.
It's not sustainable. I agree. It's not.
And like the thing is, like once you sort of get me used to that like milk and honey type of treatment, you're fucked, man. Because it's like, how do you wean me off of that?
Right.
So basically, right now the answer the thing you have to answer is like, okay, we have an audience, we have eyeballs, we can monetize those eyeballs. How do we do that without ads?
Right.
And how do we do that in such a way that is beneficial to the influencer and okay, so parameters, let's say. Method of money from eyeballs. Number one, must integrate with creators. So like example, merch or something that they're already doing. You can't just like give them money.
Right.
And then number two, must be something that is a bottleneck currently.
Yeah.
And I'll put some question marks here. So I think like you're getting a free sort of product management session.
No, I am. This is so valuable, bro. I can't even tell you. I'm so happy with getting this.
I think the goal here and having this is just like me in an hour spitballing, dude. But like the goal here really is like we have to ask a lot of questions and brainstorm and ideate and talk to people, because that's exactly what the stage of your business is at right now. Like
building a product is like, yeah.
Exactly. And right now, if you're rigid in terms of, so let me just drop this. If you're rigid in terms of like, how do I make money, what my business model is, it's going to be very difficult. It's an uphill battle because it can very easily change. So the main question you have to answer is like, how do I keep people on? How do I incentivize those people? How do I make it easy for them to upload content? And, basically like what is the underlying economy of this entire platform?
Right.
And more importantly, how can I do it in such a way that that's not ad based, because ads come from traffic and you don't have the luxury that YouTube does to operate at a loss for like 10 years. And have very deep pockets. So you got to bootstrap everything.
Do you want to invest?
Yeah, man, I'd love to invest.